Howdy, howdy, fellow movie fans, and welcome back for another edition of the Let's Go Movie Watching Podcast, brought to you by those Davies boys. As always, we are those Davies boys. Evan and Dylan Davies. The year-long project continues. Dylan, what are we doing today?
Covering the 2010s.
So, if you did not join us for our last session of this, it was recent that we released it, but it was a month ago now almost. That's crazy. It's crazy how time works. But we talked about significant tech upgrades, significant film and trends in the movie industry from the 2020s. And that was kind of more theoretical, almost, because we're only halfway through that decade. Now we kind of get to talk a little, not true definitives yet, I would say, like we can about the 80s or the 70s. But we got far closer to definitives now than we would with the 2020s.
I actually have a question immediately.
Sure.
I can't remember the host's name. The guy on the rewatchables.
Sure.
They were doing like a decades kind of thing, like just picking out their favorite decade movies of the decade. And they were saying that the year 2000 would go into the 90s decade. Does that make any sense to you?
No.
Okay,
Zero.
I was gonna say I consider the decade 2010 to 2019.
I would as well.
And then
It's
January
the
1st.
number that actually delineates a decade.
Yeah, I didn't understand their thinking because they excluded the 2000s from all the when they were doing
So
the
the
2000s
thing is
decade.
this, I think a lot of people like the round number version of it. This kind of goes back to like the Seinfeld argument about the new millennium when Newman and Jerry are like competing for stuff, and Kramer and Newman are competing for the best party for the new
hmm
millennium. And Jerry points out, it's like, well, the year 2000 would be there was no year zero, so that would be the 2000th year. So really, the new millennium doesn't start till 2001. And that is a pure correct statement. So mathematically speaking, we are correct in the fact that we do 0 to 9 in a way because it's the actual decade period and how decades are
Yeah,
measured.
10 years.
But that does not inherently mean, oh, I just found out I have 2 nice holes in my short. That's awesome. Might have to go throw something on quick and let you vamp. But it is certainly something in which I don't get that, because that's just people wanting really clean round numbers. They want a 1 to
Yeah,
10,
it
and
baffled me.
I want the actual decade, which starts 0 to 9, which I
Yeah,
know that's not everyone's favorite thing in the world, but that's actually what a decade is. So,
yeah, January 1st, 2010,
yes.
and then December 31st, 2019.
Yes, that is the end of the decade. I mean, I get it. 1 through 10 is a nicer look, but
Yes, but
we don't say 2001 to 2010 is the decade. We never do that. We go, oh, the aughts is 0 to 9. The
yeah.
tens is 10 to 19. But yeah, hold on 1 second for me.
I'll probably be ragging on this decade. Just a forewarning.
Nice shot of my midriff there for everybody. Which internet, drink it in. Water's fine. Um, Gotta make a joke of it, otherwise, what are we doing here? Alrighty, so let's go major trends here first. Start off the decade.
Yeah. I have a couple that we don't really need to talk about that much. Just like just put bullet points.
Sure.
So a couple of mine were the rise of elevated horror.
Okay.
It's definitely one.
That was one of mine for
They're
sure. Yeah.
yeah, they're definitely not making like just slasher crap. It's just disposable.
That's correct.
Um, an emphasis on diversity for sure. The disappearance of studio comedies. Uh, TV enters the golden era, so it starts to take away from film.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. You cut out again, dude. Oh, the beauty, the beauty, the beauty, the beauty.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. The last one was takeover of tent poles, which goes hand in hand with the disappearance of studio comedies because those are mid-budget.
Yeah, so you when I assume when you're talking about tent poles, we're talking about IP driven film that is kind of always
Well, really anything that's just like the studio 100% betting on this is going to work.
sure.
Because like even though it's not in this decade, I would say Avatar is a tent pole, even though it's based on
Well,
nothing.
the vast majority of its money
Yeah.
comes in the 2010s too, so that's important to note.
Yeah, I would count that even though it's not based on anything, it's still a huge budget.
Oh yeah. Well, it's James Cameron. Of course, it's huge budget.
Yeah.
The man doesn't know how to make a movie for less than $300 million anymore.
Yeah. And then I have a lot of negative stuff.
All right, you go for it.
So I I have one down that I think is hit and miss, really. It's not totally negative, but it's mostly negative, which is YA dystopia.
That was
Huge trend.
that's on my list as well. The YA
Yeah.
fiction adaptations.
You got Hunger Games, Divergent, The Maze Runner, The Giver. I'm sure there's something else I'm missing, but
Well,
that was
it all comes off of Twilight, and then
yes. Well,
Twilight
really
is
Harry Potter, and
Harry.
then
I mean, yes, Harry Potter, but Harry Potter. It's really stupid because Harry Potter, yes, is a YA novel series, but it's
yeah,
always given because it's so well done. It's always given like the prestige format, like a Lord of the Rings,
yes,
not not YA fiction. But Twilight just screams
true,
YA
yes.
fiction, even though technically I don't think Twilight is YA fiction. I think it's just
Eh, I
I
would
think
count it as that.
I think it's just super popular with that genre, but I don't inherently think it is inherently YA.
I would say it's YA because uh, you probably won't get anything out of it as an adult, honestly.
But then there's other stuff that's YA that I think you do get stuff out of.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
would say Harry Potter is one of those, but
because I
um,
even can get stuff out of the Hunger Games, even though I think the Hunger Games very much lacks in quality
that's
towards the end of this
definitely yes,
franchise.
that's definitely on the positive end of YA dystopia,
Yeah,
but then you have so much disposable crap.
correct.
There was also that one with Chloe Grace Moretz, I can't remember what the fuck it's called. Like,
Uh,
the 5th Wave or the 4th Wave or something like that. That was
maybe.
also
Well, it's
eh
also I think the thing that made it feel more inundating, and as you said, to another trend, you had television and prestige television really coming to the forefront through streaming services now. So a lot of stuff that used to be turned into film is now being turned into prestige television. And there
mhm,
was a fucking ton of television of YA book adaptations where
yeah,
everyone said, it's kind of like when Star Wars happened, how every studio scrambled and said, we got to get a we got to get a space sci-fi movie. We got to get one
mhm,
because clearly this is what the people want. Not thinking, no, they want Star Wars. They don't just want stuff set in space, right? Everyone panicked and like, we got to get the YA book. We got to get the YA book. They're printing money over there. And because the two worked or the three examples worked, everybody. Because I remember even going to like C2E2, it's a comic and entertainment convention. It's probably the biggest and most enjoyable convention to still go to because it still isn't San Diego and it's not New York, which just now have the entire mentality and appearance of no one wants to be there except for the fact that it's San Diego or it's New York, just because they're just inundated with people there. Like Chicago, you can still walk around and do stuff at the convention and still make it into a panel. And I remember the last couple years going before I left Chicago, the amount of YA book panels and YA popularity from movies skyrocketing because
mhm,
every fucking person and every production company had to have YA shit. And I was
yeah.
just like, oh my God. Like, what are we doing here, guys?
Um, the other one well, I have two that go hand in hand, which is Disney live action adaptations,
Sure.
and then right along in that is the fairy tale. Uh, I just wrote fairy tale shit because that's frankly kind of what it was. So you had the Hansel and Gretel movie, Mirror Mirror, the same year that you had Snow White and the Huntsman.
Yep.
Jack the Giant Slayer was one. Um, there was the James Franco Oz movie. Like all these things that are just royalty
Yeah.
free, so they can just go, hey, we don't gotta pay anyone.
Well,
They're in the public domain.
yeah, Mila Kunis turning into the Wicked Witch of the West, and it does
Yes.
not look right. Just doesn't look right. They gave her
Yeah,
these
that
like
movie's a mess.
they gave her these like really like almost parallelogram esque rectangular shaped cheeks coming out here, and you're like, I guys, I get it. She like I think Mila Kunis is a beautiful woman, but like I know you can't just make her put her in green makeup like they did back in the day, but
That's what I would have done.
fucking Christ, don't just put a square on her face and be like she's ugly now. You're like, no,
Yeah,
that's
I
not the
mean,
point, man. I thankfully I've never sat through that entire movie because I was excited. I like Oz, as you know. Both of us have Wizard of Oz in our top 100. We both really like that world.
there's one good thing about that movie, which is there's a part where it switches from the Kansas parts to the Oz parts, and they in one shot they like expand the frame, so it's no longer 4:3. They do the I'm
Ah,
assuming 1.85 to 1. Um, so that was cool. That's like the one cool shot in that movie. Other than that, I dislike it extremely.
yeah, here, hold on one second. You're lagging. I don't know why. Where your mouth is moving and then the words come out a second later.
Hmm.
It's very strange.
What about now? You got to look at my
Eh,
mouth.
it's still off.
Eh, can't do anything
All
then.
right, fuck it, whatever. We'll keep going. Yeah, no, that Oz the Great and Powerful, not so much. That is a cool shot that you're describing. I like when anyone can do something visually interesting like that. I think that's really cool and fun. But it's just one of those things where you're like, guys, you gotta. And also, it's Disney, and Disney was trying to do Wizard of Oz for so long, and that's what you that if that's the product you put out after that's been like a studio dream for almost 100 years is to do Wizard of Oz, and you finally get to do it on like a big scale. Because I know they had one in like the 70s or something like that, or late 80s, not late 80s, like it's either late 70s, early 80s, where they had one, but it was very much one of those like movies that came and went quick for Disney and no one ever speaks about. It wasn't one of the big
Yeah.
animated pieces, and I was like, you guys have been waiting for like 100 years to make this property, and this is what you're gonna go with? Okay,
Also, a weird choice of director,
who's directing that movie?
Sam Raimi.
Yeah, I love Sam Raimi to death. I love pretty much anything I've ever seen Sam Raimi direct. I really love, or if I don't really love, I enjoy on a good level. Sam Raimi is not who I would have chose
No,
for Oz. Oz is supposed to be whimsical and
I
fantastic.
would I would choose Sam Raimi for Oz if you aren't making a Disney version of it.
I mean, if you want to make a dark version of it, sure. But
Exactly.
like that's why when they said Sam Raimi's doing Doctor Strange, I went, that's fucking metal because Sam Raimi is perfect for when you're going to get weird and wonky in the world of Doctor Strange. I don't see him working with Toto very much. Like, that's what I'm like. Come on, guys. So it's an interesting choice. Um, any other bulleted point major trends that you want to hit on quick?
Uh, yeah, attempts at cinematic universes.
I will get into that one deeply because that's obviously
Okay.
that's major trend the of the tens.
Yeah. Other than that, we don't even have to talk about it. Everyone knows it. 1980s nostalgia.
Yeah, it's the weird transition point is we started getting 90s at the tail end, but like I feel like the pandemic kind of killed the 90s nostalgia stuff because now we're getting into 2000s nostalgia stuff with some 90s baked in because like I look at F1 And they're like, "Oh, the 1990s, if the 1990s called," and all that kind of stuff. They say it multiple times in that movie, and you're like, "Oh, that makes sense. It was 30 years ago," but really, it's a 20-year period of where the nostalgia kind of kicks in. Because I remember in the late from like 2005 to 2009, the amount of 80s shit, like big 80s properties that were made all during the time of our teenage years and our youth were getting just rolled out. Like, you know, they kept doing Ninja Turtles over and over again. Transformers, obviously, they made into a huge franchise. G.I. Joe started then.
I I associate 80s nostalgia more with the early part of the 2010s than I do anything else.
Really?
Yeah.
Because, like, the big cartoon properties that were for kids that got put into adult entertainment all were usually late aughts.
Well,
Transformers, G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles, like those kind of things.
but there's also adaptations in the early 2010s of all those things.
Yeah, I mean, they're continuing that franchise too. Like, it's just weird because I was so looking forward to the 90s stuff, and on the comic book end, the 90s stuff comes about. Yeah, obviously we had so many X-Men, we had so much Spider-Man, we had so much Batman stuff coming out. DC and Marvel are going out so much, and we'll talk about that even more. But I was looking for even more 90s nostalgia stuff because obviously that's what I like, that's what we like from our youth. But it like outside of one Power Ranger movie, we didn't really get a ton of 90s stuff at the end of the tens. Obviously Jurassic Park's in there too, but or Jurassic World too. So I guess there's there. It's just not exactly the stuff like I thought was gonna come, you know. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing because usually they're just mining anything they can from 20 years ago. I always look at like what's the 20-year window? That's what's coming now. So it's scary to think what's going to come back in 20 years. That's
It's just the way it goes.
which is why I'm kind of almost happy that they're adapting a lot of video games and things of that nature now, because then that's going to be the popular stuff that's revitalized later. Like we're getting Legend of Zelda is on the way. We're getting multiple Mario games. The Last of Us, obviously, big stuff. Like they're doing those kind of materials.
Yeah, that
Any,
was all the stuff I had down.
I think the cinematic universe is one that I think we do need to talk about a lot, and then I have one to transition us into tech. The the cinematic universe, the first one that happens in a modern context, because people always forget the Marvel Cinematic Universe is not the first shared universe in film history. It's by far the most successful,
Mhm.
but it's not the first. The first true one that people would actually kind of think about is the Universal Monster franchise.
Yeah.
Because then, and ironically, a lot of that's tied in by Abbott and Costello of all things. Because
Mhm.
Abbott and Costello starts flowing through all the old monster movies, which is hilarious to think about. But you had that, and then there were other ones that like they'd come and go, or they'd have a little piece here and a little piece there, and they were tied together. But nothing like the MCU is the first one where every single piece is pivotal to the next piece. And even if it's not pivotal to the next piece, it ties into the big linchpin movies that you're going to pull from the universe. And it makes perfect sense for a comic book world to do that. However, then everyone thought, just like the YA fiction, we got to have a cinematic universe.
Mhm.
Universal, before even The Mummy comes out, we're going to have the Dark Universe. And one movie came out because it sucked. Like,
Yeah. I think technically it was 2. Wasn't Dracula Untold supposed to be the first?
so
But that was like a retroactive add-in,
they tried to say that could kind of be there.
which never made sense to me because that movie sucks and it did poorly.
It did
So,
poorly and it sucks. So that's why I was like, no, it's not. And then they tried to retroactively kind of say, like, oh, Dracula Untold's going to be. I'm like, all due respect, like, I like Luke Evans. I think he's a fine character actor.
mhm.
He's definitely the standout of The Hobbit for me outside of Richard Armitage as Thorin Oakenshield. Like, those are the only two I really, really enjoy and would go to bat for in the Hobbit trilogy are those two. Because obviously Ian McKellen's great and whatever. I like Lee Pace a lot as Thranduil. But like
I think Martin Freeman's good in those movies.
the funny part is the more I think about the ensemble, I like the ensemble. I think all the pieces are there. It just doesn't come together in the right way.
No, it's just they made too many movies.
Since we're in the 2010s, we can talk about it. How many movies should The Hobbit should have been?
I would argue 1 3-hour movie.
I probably would have done two,
If
admittedly.
you've read the book The Hobbit,
Yeah.
there is a lot that you could take out and make it work in a 3-hour movie.
Yeah, I just the first movie was so long and that could have been 30 minutes.
Exactly.
I think you need the intro with Bilbo and the dwarves. I think you should put the trolls in there, and then you have to go to the goblin caves. That's what you need. But you don't need half the other crap that's in there.
Yeah. You don't need the dwarves
Well,
in
you do need to go
Hobbiton.
to Rivendell. That is important, actually.
Yes, but you don't need the dwarves in Hobbiton singing and
Because
yeah.
what I would have done is I would have done everything up to Smaug. I would have done exactly what they did in Desolation of Smaug, but I would have cut those movies into two. And then my
Mhm.
second one, I would have done all of Smaug, the downfall of Thorin Oakenshield, and then the Battle of the Five Armies. Because then he's like,
That would have
okay,
been better.
it's 2 3 hour parts to this book.
Yeah.
You can elongate it and really give some character depth stuff, but you don't need to do that. But that's a different story entirely. I'm also thinking about it heavily because last night, after Dylan came over on Valentine's Day and we just kind of hung out because my wife abandoned me. That was just a joke. She went for a girls' weekend with somebody, but um, Dylan and I were essentially just building movies the entire day as we were talking. But after I got done with the Twitch stream last night, I just was like, you know what? I'm just gonna watch the extended cut of Fellowship of the Ring. I don't fucking care. So that's what I do with my time. So Lord of the Rings is very present in my head right now. But yeah, the 2010s is the cinematic universe where The Hobbit obviously comes up. That's 10 years after the original trilogy comes out. Makes sense. The Hobbit was eventually going to get made. Sure. The Dark Universe, they're always trying to make the Universal monsters happen.
Yeah. So Dark Universe, you had Tom Cruise the Mummy. Angelina Jolie was supposed to be Bride of Frankenstein.
Correct.
Jekyll and Hyde was Russell Crowe.
Harvey Bardem was Frankenstein.
And then Johnny Depp, Invisible Man.
Yes.
Those were the five, right?
Wow, they really cursed that right around that time, man.
No good choices except Harvey Bardem, really.
Uh, I was just interested what is Tom Cruise at the end of The Mummy?
That movie sucks so much that I don't give a fuck what he is.
I know it just bites at me because I'm like, what are you insinuating he is now? Because he clearly becomes some sort of supernatural being,
Yes.
but they never show it. I'm like, are you saying he's Dracula, or is he the Mummy, or is he
I think
something
he's
else
supposed to be the
entirely?
Mummy.
I would assume, but like, what is the Mummy?
In this universe, who fucking knows?
And that's the thing that's always bugged me because I remember I was really excited for that because
So was I.
Tom Cruise at the time was this is right after Mission Impossible really kicked up a notch, and you had
Mhm.
Rogue Nation was just a year or two removed.
Yeah, and then you also had Live Die Repeat a couple
Y-
years before.
right, and you had so many good Tom Cruise movies coming out again that I was like, oh, that's perfect. Tom Cruise action adventure kind of start a franchise makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And then woof.
Yeah.
I just saw a clip of that. I think yesterday, on my phone or something, scrolling. And I'm like, what the fuck was this? I have no idea what's going on. But yeah, it like Dark Universe was there. The DCEU, instead of taking their time, jump starts immediately into trying to do a shared universe.
Mhm.
Where Man of Steel is fine if you want to start a universe off of Man of Steel. I think it's a flawed decision because Zack Snyder should never be your
Yeah.
lead architect. But if you wanted to say a Superman movie is the start of your universe, that makes perfect sense. because immediately, as much as I love Batman, Batman would not be the start of my DCEU
No, yeah.
because Batman is too grounded. So if I already put the fantastic elements in, then people can accept if Batman's in this world, Batman will get some more fantastic elements to him.
Yeah. Had they said the start of it was Wonder Woman, it probably could have been a little bit more successful.
Oh, Wonder
Because
Woman's actually a good movie.
the tone of Wonder Woman also fits better with a cinematic universe than Man of Steel.
Well, yeah, Man of Steel is just so many ramifications of that. And it's so clear now. All they wanted to do is make the title Batman versus Superman work.
Mhm,
Because I remember watching the old AMC movie talk with John Campea at the time.
mhm.
And he was the first person I ever heard theorize this. I'm not saying other people on the internet didn't, but he's the first person I heard verbalize it in like 2014, right when they barely started announcing stuff, or maybe even 13. He's like, I think this is how this all works. You know, Batman's going to attack Superman because of all the stuff that happened in Metropolis, and he's going to think Superman's a threat. And he, like, point for point for point for the first like hour and a half of that movie, I'm like, Campy said this whole thing. Like, there's nothing new here. Campy said this entire thing 3 years ago when it came out. And I mean, I had blinders on the first two times I watched it because I remember I got early access to that twice. It
Mm.
really actually helped the first iteration of this channel that no one even speaks about, including us. But I remember you even drove down to Milwaukee and we went and saw Batman. How did you feel about Batman versus Superman the first time you watched it?
I remember being I was like, "Yeah, it was fine. It was good." But, like, one thing that, always bothered people about that movie never bothered me, which was the Martha part of it. Like, is it kinda dumb? Yeah, but it's like, it doesn't bother me.
I think it's more the contextual of it. Like, why is he randomly then shouting out his mother's name instead of saying like mom or something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
And then it's just the as much as I defend Ben Affleck as an actor because I think he's actually legitimately great. I don't think that's the best scene he's ever done. Where all of a sudden he just turns into, "Why did you just say that name?" And like
Has
it's just
anyone ever given a great performance in a Zack Snyder movie?
that's a
I would
great
argue no.
that's a great question. I don't know. Gerard Butler as Leonidas. That's pretty good.
I guess.
Let's see what else we got.
I mean, I don't know.
How about Mekhi Phifer in the remake of Dawn of the Dead? And then what's his face? He plays Phil Dunphy from Modern Family. It's gonna drive me insane because I do know his name, but he plays such a wonderful prick in Dawn of the Dead. That he's great. But those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head that I'm like, yeah, they did a really good job.
Yeah, I don't know. Flawed thinking all the way
Are you saying
around.
Russell Crowe wasn't giving his greatest performance in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel in the 2010s?
He's phoning that in so hard. Like, I don't blame him, honestly, but
I think the worst is I think that's the first time Russell Crowe appears on camera where he's clearly just I don't want to say given up. That's not fair. But he's clearly just stopped caring about his physique. He's clearly just stopped caring about the idea of what it is to be a movie star. And it's unfair because you shouldn't have to uphold body standards and stuff like that. But when you're first known for Gladiator, and like obviously he does stuff before Gladiator, but that's clearly the pinnacle of his career is Gladiator, Beautiful Mind, that era.
mhm.
And then you're just like, you show up and you're Superman's dad and you're just kind of overweight. You're just like, meh, but I'm a scientist that'll save Krypton and I just don't
Yeah.
care. It's a little sad. It's a little sad.
The other 2 universes that I had written down were the attempted Sonyverse,
Oh god, that was bad. That's
which
worse than the
actually
DCU.
continued into the 2020s, really. Or
Yeah,
it's like another version of it.
it allegedly still functions, sort of.
Okay, so the Amazing Spider-Man is supposed to connect to Morbius.
I have no idea.
That's what they say.
But then
I
they
don't know.
also say it connects to Tom Holland Spider-Man. I'm like, what? No, don't ever say that.
Yeah, I because of initially it was supposed to be Amazing Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2, then a Sinister Six
Yeah,
movie.
they really were trying for Sinister Six, man. They were
Yeah.
trying so hard for that.
I can't remember if there was anything else that they announced.
Well, they wanted to do, obviously they were going to do an Amazing Spider-Man 3. They wanted to do
Yes.
that. Venom was always the one that everyone talked about,
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
every movie insider, they're like, Venom's coming. We don't know when, but it's coming. Like
Yeah.
they refused to let that project go. And then they announced Morbius, and then Kraven the Hunter was always the other one. They really wanted Kraven the Hunter. And then I also saw stuff where Black Cat was going to be a big. They wanted a Black Cat movie, which makes sense. Black Cat's a great Spider-Man character. And I even saw stuff where from reputable people they want to do like Silver Sable, so they could do some like
Yeah.
time travel stuff where not
I
time
just
travel
never
but
knew.
period piece kind of stuff.
Yeah. I never knew what their standalones were going to be. Like, I remember hearing all those aspects of, like, this will be in the universe, but, like, I never knew, like, "Oh, we're gonna have a standalone Black Cat movie," or whatever. It that was, like, the most flawed of the cinematic universes for sure. Worse than DCEU.
Is it worse than the Dark Universe? Because I'm not gonna lie, I know how controversial this is because
No, it's not.
I'm gonna argue yeah, but here's the reasoning. Uh, the Dark Universe obviously was flawed from the get go, and they were really banking on a movie that turned out to be a disaster. Having said that, they at least tried to have a plan and started going, we're going to establish all of these things. Amazing Spider Man 1 is a fine movie. I don't think it's great, but it was good.
That's why I would say the Dark Universe is worse. It's
But,
because they at least made one mediocre movie in the
but
Sonyverse.
this is how bad Amazing Spider Man 2 was. I don't know the total figures, but at the time the reports were they lost money on it because they spent so much money marketing that movie as if it had to. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
Spider-Man. It sells its
I
fucking
mean,
self. And they
that
spent like
movie sucks so much ass.
I know.
It is awful. Like,
It's terrible.
another one where it's just I mean, hey, I think it's the same writer, isn't uh, Orsi and what's his face?
Oh, I don't know.
Kurtzman? Alex Kurtzman? I think it was the same people.
That wouldn't shock me. I just like
'Cause, yeah, Alex Kurtzman was the head of
the Dark Universe. I know that.
the Dark Universe, and I'm fairly certain he wrote Spider-Man. Yes, he did. So, not only did okay, maybe that is no, that's another argument for Dark Universe being worse, because they saw Spider-Man,
And then they
the
went, "That's the
Sonyverse,
guy."
and
Yeah.
then they went, "He's our guy," and they went all in on that.
I think the only reason that works is it's kind of the NFL coaching thing, where recently, like Robert Saleh got a second chance as a
Yeah.
head coach, and everyone immediately goes like you could apply that logic, and you're like, well, he was terrible in New York. Why would you give him a second chance? But so many people are gonna be like, no, you don't understand. The Jets are so dysfunctional. That's not all his fault. Look what he was truly responsible for. Their defense was great. Let's just take that guy and we'll give him a better chance here. Problem is he's going to the Titans, so it's not going to work. But because they're dysfunctional as fuck too. But like that's the parallel to me is when they take a coach that they're like, well, there was something good there. That whole thing was a disaster, but it won't be like that here because we're going to make it work.
Mm,
But on the flip side, it's exactly like you said. I wouldn't make that hire after I saw what happened. I'd be like, I
yeah,
can't do this. I might bring if I saw the guy and I really liked him in the room in his pitches, I'd be like, "Yeah, I'll bring you on staff if I really like you and think let's use your ideas, but you're not going to be my architect."
yeah. Yeah, the only other universe that I have written down is the Fantastic Beasts,
Another
which
flawed decision.
that's semi cinematic universe. That's not really
I would consider that more towards The Hobbit. and the Lord of the Rings is
Yes,
like it's a
yeah,
pre-existing thing, but at least the Hobbit has a full book of material. Plus you
yeah,
have plus you have so many other writings from Tolkien and Christopher Tolkien of to build that world and that universe up, where I wouldn't have an issue if like every decade they did another big Middle Earth epic, because there's so many good pieces of that there, but at least there's shit to back it. Like
yeah.
Fantastic Beasts, they had a footnote of a fictitious book, and that's what they decided to go with.
Yeah, it's like a small textbook almost.
And it makes zero sense.
Um, I I honestly think all these are flawed universes, even Marvel.
I would agree with that. Well,
I would
we're
just
seeing what's flawed about Marvel.
I would say the only thing that Marvel had was they set it up so well that they could, survive the lows of it.
Well, I think the insane part of it though is we'll talk about this more in the tens. They were running and gunning making that first Iron Man movie, and Iron Man 2 wasn't that much better. They were just kind of they were shooting from the hip, just making it work, and it just so happened they had the perfect recipe to start. And then they
Yeah,
almost
and they had charismatic leads
yeah, I was going to say they picked the right people
because as
to
much as
lead
I
those.
like some parts of Fantastic Beasts, Eddie Redmayne is not Robert Downey Jr. He does not have the charisma to back up a whole universe.
Talk about another guy that just kind of came and went. He hasn't been doing a whole heck of a lot of big stuff anymore. He got
Yeah,
he got so hot, and then all of a sudden he did a couple duds, and then they're like, "We're done with you."
I still like him as an actor, but
I think he's a good actor, but he's not. I think Eddie Redmayne would do great as a supporting actor in a franchise. Like I
yeah,
see him as a. I think he'd be perfect for Matt Reeves' Batman universe. Like if they didn't put cast Paul Dano, I could see him as a really good Riddler or another really good like I could even see him doing Two Face really well, being the Golden Boy, like District Attorney, and then having that
yeah.
dark side to him. Like that would be a really good piece for him, but not. Also, all due respect to Newt Scamander, the idea of the character, not the most compelling character to lead a franchise in a universe either. I'm
Uh,
not saying it can't work because any character can work, but you're
I just
giving
don't like
us.
I don't like what he was given.
Oh
That's
yeah,
the problem to me.
I would agree. I would agree.
Was there any other universe that I missed on there?
Obviously, it's just the comic book world. It takes over because then we also start seeing anybody who could get their hands on a comic book property took it. You got like Valerian was in there, Bloodshot was in there, Image Comics was
I
constantly trying
totally
to
forgot about Bloodshot.
exactly as one should.
That was a
Anything that,
2020 movie, wasn't it?
I think so, but it got delayed so many times.
Yeah, I just remember, like, I think it was during the pandemic where they're just like, "Fuck it, we're just gonna dump this thing."
Yeah, and it's just anything that could be produced out of a comic book was produced. And it was the same thing. Like you also had, ironically enough, Warner Brothers Television on the CW had their own shared version of DC's universe,
Yeah,
and so you had fans that were already loyal to one having to compare the new thing to the thing that they already liked, and that was an odd kind of thing. Netflix had their own Marvel Cinematic Universe technically with Daredevil and Jessica Jones, and
yeah,
this all counts, but none of it counts. Where you're
yeah.
like, oh,
Uh,
Daredevil's in the MCU, and outside of one newspaper clipping in the back, n- no one ever addresses how it actually connects to each other.
I will say I look forward to the death of cinematic universes.
I don't look forward to the death of cinematic universes. I look forward to the death of stupidity because
That's never gonna happen.
I know,
There's always gonna be stupid things being made,
I know.
and
I,
stupid choices within good things being made.
the only thing I will say right now is I think the big players have finally learned. It was ironic. They kind of were doing 80s style practices with a new thing. You know, like the 80s, they would just roll shit out. They're just like, we're doing Batman. Here you go. We're doing this. We're doing that. It felt like they were doing that, and they were just like, well, "This is comic books. It'll work. Like, these fucking nerds will get it," and they'll just be like, "We're doing Captain Marvel." And you're like, "Well, you haven't established this character at all. Like,
Yeah,
what?" I and now because of Disney Plus with both Star Wars starts becoming more of a cinematic universe as well. We forgot that.
true, true.
So because with Solo and Rogue One, that's a shared universe now. That's no
Yeah,
longer just the Star Wars series, and that did not go well. I love Rogue One, and Solo as a movie. Solo on its own is not bad. If you just take the name Han Solo off that movie, that's a fine little adventure movie.
I would agree.
But
I think both
it's
of them are very mediocre.
but it's Han Solo, the one character that just leave the mystery in Star Wars. Just leave him alone. Just let him be Harrison Ford. Never
They
let
can't
anyone
do
else be
that.
Harrison Ford.
That's proof that stupidity will always exist.
And I just think, thankfully, especially on the Disney end, they've gotten their ass kicked so much with both their two biggies in Marvel and Star Wars that they're going, let's start paring this down. Let's start picking our spots a little bit better. And that's what I have hope for. Same thing of I'm concerned about what's going to happen with Netflix and the DCEU or the DCU with
Yeah.
James Gunn because I don't know if James Gunn's the best architect with Peter Safran, but the one thing I respect about James Gunn is he's like, we're not going to just release this just to release it. It ain't coming out until we think it's good enough. And that has happened thus far, where he's like, I'm not going to.
Well,
If
it really it all depends on Supergirl whether it's
I mean
good.
that's going to be a big thing. I mean,
Because it to me it at least has to be pretty good for it to be justified.
yeah. I mean, I also just look at it like the Incredible Hulk is fine as Marvel's second outing. Iron Man 2 is legitimately not good.
Yeah.
And that's Marvel's third outing. And then both Thor and Captain America are good, but they're not like home runs, you know?
Mhm.
They're both nice singles or doubles. Where you're like, okay, that was a fun movie.
But people are more wary now than they were back then.
Correct. So and also you don't have the built-in fandom anymore. People are exhausted on this shit, so the
Mhm.
quality's got to speak. So we'll see how that goes. The only other one, and this is going to kind of go towards the tech upgrades as well, is the mini trend of the 3D movie from Avatar,
Yes,
where the
yes.
early 2010s, everything had to be made in 3D.
Actually, post-conversion 3D.
Well, I
That was
remember
a big thing for a while.
I remember one heated discussion because you fuckers lied to me because this was at the height of when my untreated migraines were at their worst because my body was changing so much at the time in my late teens and early 20s as one's body does. And so my migraines were terrible. And then you did not tell me that the second time we were going to Avengers was because it was my second time seeing the movie. You guys didn't tell me it was a 3D showing.
I don't know about that.
No, I can
I
remember
only saw
vividly.
that movie once in the theater.
Well, I went before you guys. So I was like, "Oh yeah, you guys want to go see
Okay.
Avengers? I'll
I
gladly
was like,
go."
because I remember being very underwhelmed by it in theater, and I remember only seeing it once.
That's weird because I fucking loved Avengers. Now I kind of go, it's Avengers, okay.
Most people love it, and I don't know.
Because the thing is, I will say, I remember being like, oh my god, can't wait to go again. You guys, oh well, we're gonna go, and then we literally walked into the theater, and you're like, oh by the way, it's like you pointed at the sign, it said 3D. I was like, what the fuck, guys? Like, come on. And then
Yeah,
walking home, just being like, oh my god, my brain hurts so bad. Um,
yeah. I mean, technically, 3D is still a thing.
but it's far less used.
Yeah, very selectively
Because
now.
remember in the early tens how they were trying to convert all the old movies like Jurassic Park got a 3D release. There was a couple
Mhm.
other movies that were really popular.
Phantom Menace.
Yeah, they all started getting 3D releases because Avatar was so popular, and I
I
was
wanna see,
that was a trend I was so happy to let die.
I wanna see a major release get re-released, but as a 4D movie. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, what would be the worst one to have a 4D experience on?
Um, Mad Max, Fury Road,
Yeah, that's true.
because you'd have to.
Some some
Yeah,
heat flying at you when the flames come
yeah, it's
shooting
so
out.
much heat, and just imagine the smells.
Or
Post
like
post apocalyptic, because I always remember like the Muppets 4D theater at
yep,
Disney when we went as
yeah.
kids, and the bubbles shooting up, and they
Hmm.
making it feel like the rats were growing like running across
Yeah.
your feet. I remember that. I enjoyed that as an experience as a kid, but I don't remember anything that happened in the movie. I just remember bubbles were released at once and the rats across the feet. That was the only thing I ever
Yeah.
remembered.
Yeah. That'd be cool, a cool experience.
I That would be fun.
Or I remember there's I don't know if it's still a thing, but there was a, like, type of theater where, like, the seats would move along with the action.
Yeah.
Let's do that, but with, like, one of the Michael Bay Transformer movies where it's just chaos. You're just being thrown around.
I think you know what? I say this all the time. This is an actual show that we need to do. Like we need to think of what are some movies that would be great for 4D or 5D. And like I don't know what that even means, but we're gonna figure it out.
So, fi yeah, 5D would be including, smell and feel.
Okay. So 4D slash 5D movies. We gotta put that on the docket as well. That'll be a good show. Other than that, I don't really have any major trends that this kind of gets us into significant tech. When I look at
I have one written down,
okay,
which is just really simple. It's just almost total conversion to digital instead of film.
I wrote that as well.
And it's just simply it's cheaper, it's easier, faster. That's really why it happened. And then you get plus sides and downsides with that. Because technically speaking, it's higher resolution, it's better in like low light scenarios, but I also think it leads to a lot more ugly cinematography.
I think,
Oh, you also get immediate playback on digital.
which is
So
huge.
there's no more dailies that you need to go look at to see if you got the shots you needed.
Yeah.
Like that is a benefit.
Well, I just think the digital revolution in film is so important and so good that it happens because it makes the world of film a far more accessible place to everybody. To where, like, look at the DaVinci
Yeah.
Resolve can't exist in the film world. To where you can have DaVinci Resolve on your fucking home computer right now, right? Or even something as simple like I use CapCut half the time just because it's so easy to drag and drop shit. And it's fucking wild that if we still had film, you and I would not be doing this podcast. And I know it's silly because you're like, oh no, that's not the same thing. I'm like, no, it is the same thing. Because the editing that comes with the digital is what actually makes this capable, not just the shooting of an internet production. It's the
Mm.
editing process that comes through that's developed due to the digital revolution. It's all the things that spin off it that are really important. I agree with you. I miss that grainy film look from time to time. I think there are projects that
My thing is just I think it becomes so much easier to move fast that people rush through things.
I'd agree with that.
And then deadlines are rushed, which leads to a lot more downfall.
Well, that's the
So,
spin-off, and that's the detraction of the digital age now, in which because we are capable of moving faster, we don't stop and look at the roses very often when we need to. And I mean, I just how many great movies back in the day had delays and had to stop and make something work. I mean, Jaws was 100 days over fucking schedule.
Titanic.
Titanic was over the board. Star Wars was a disaster
Well, really, almost every Spielberg movie. Like
until
he was
Raiders. Yeah.
he was known as the guy who like went over schedule, and he was like, "Hey, I really need to work on this."
Well, that's what Raiders is for. I think that's the funniest part about Raiders is part of the reason Raiders has such a kinetic energy is Spielberg literally went into that saying, I have the reputation of going over schedule
Yeah.
so badly. I need to stay on schedule. So he would just fucking run all the time with shit. And it worked perfectly for that movie. And
Mhm.
thankfully, he has now in retrospect one of the greatest ensemble teams of making a movie that's ever been
Yeah.
had. Like he had the best editor and the best co-producers and the best writer that could have been with him, and anything that could have went right on Raiders went right.
Oh, another trend that I actually really dislike is the big movie announcement. Like Marvel, they would have like,
Oh,
"Hey,
I love Hall H. I love that Hall H
here's the
stuff.
next 15 movies you can expect and when they're gonna be out."
And it,
I dislike that so much. Like, that's just setting yourself up, I think, for pissing people off.
I don't think you need to make it as big as it is. I think it's really good that Marvel did that. I really do. Because it created the hype around movies that needed it. And you wanted to set up these smaller
Yeah.
properties. So for instance, I like if you just said Guardians of the Galaxy, nothing else, and did it exactly like every other movie, I don't think that works that well. But when you announce it as part of your big slate, because Guardians of the Galaxy, even the nerdiest of nerds could not fucking tell you about that property until that movie came out, to where one of the reasons I got into Guardians of the Galaxy, the comic book, before the movie came out was because of that Hall H announcement.
Mm.
So
I just don't think you I don't know, it leads to more delays because you're always going, "Okay, this is the plan. This is when it's gonna come out." And you're
okay,
doing it years in advance. I've never liked that way of thinking. I wish they would just release a movie. If it's successful, then plan on whatever's next.
I think you can kind of do both.
With a loose,
Yeah,
you do
I
need a
think
plan.
I think you need a plan, especially if you're going to do these cinematic universes or even a franchise now, because I think that's why franchises back in the day sucked, because
That's true.
they would make one and they were just like, we're making a movie, and it was so successful. They're like, well, we got to make another one,
Yeah, that is true.
and then
Um,
that's what happened. So like,
okay, so should we cover Oscars next,
well,
or
I did want to
there's
point out.
one obvious thing we have to cover?
So I did want to point out three other big tech things. One, it's the advent of streaming. Streaming starts the domination of the tens, and that completely changed our landscape. But we covered that a lot in the 2020s,
Mhm.
and we cover that all the time. And another downfall that ties to our last episode, it's the beginning of the deep fake and the AI. At the end of that decade, we start seeing more and more of,
Yeah, also resurrection of dead actors,
yeah, uh,
which they've actually moved away from, which is
thank
a good
God.
thing.
Thank fucking God.
I mean, I'm sure it's going to happen again. Now with AI being able to do so much, I don't want it to happen, but
No, it shouldn't happen.
I
But
don't want fucking Humphrey Bogart starring in the next, thriller for Fox, but
yeah, I remember they announced it. What was the one that it worked for? Where they brought something back, and then I remember when that
the
first was becoming a thing, there was an announcement someone was going to use James Dean, and I was
yes,
like,
yes,
no,
and it got so
fucking,
much blowback, they never did it.
and I'm like, no, that's so dumb. Let him be. Let his spirit
I
be. Let it be.
I get you're asking the families for permission, but because that person's dead and they can't speak for themselves, like, that just seems so fucked up.
Super fucked up. Are you
'Cause
kidding
it's
me?
like, what if you make a movie where the family doesn't really care about the legacy of the person, and
Yeah.
then it'd be a movie they would never actually make in their lifetime.
Well,
Like, that's I don't know.
James Dean stars as Aquaman, and you're like,
Yeah, it's
no,
disgusting, honestly.
it's in such poor taste. Though, but I will say there is a significant trend that I wanted to talk about that is really good, and that is mocap is perfected, but mocap becomes a huge
Yeah,
thing, and that's a
that's fair.
huge beneficial thing in the tens, where
Yeah.
Andy Serkis is walking around by himself as Gollum, kind of thing, and now the vast majority of every movie that you really like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or
Mhm.
or in a lot of other big franchise films where you can see different things that you never thought you'd see is because of motion capture.
Yeah.
And not only were they doing body stuff, but then they started to figure out how to actually use someone's face in the design. So, because remember the first time you see the Hulk, you're like, that's not Edward Norton or that's not
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo. And by the end of the decade, you're like, holy shit, that's Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. Like,
Yeah.
holy
I mean,
shit.
I think the turning point there is Avatar, really, but
Avatar is certainly a big, huge push for that.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's James
But the
Cameron.
yeah,
Of course, he
the
pushes that forward.
but the 2010s is where it gets perfected, quote, unquote.
But that's the last of my
Um,
significant trends. Talk, give us some Oscars on this one.
okay, uh, just to cover one more, the very obvious thing, which I think is honestly the biggest part of the 2010s, and that's the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, think of all the people that finally had,
Reckoning.
reckoning, yes, for all their shitty behavior for 20 years. Like, it is a positive thing.
It's a
I'm glad it
positive
happened.
thing. It's a positive thing. Obviously, there's spin-off of it that isn't positive, but
No, there's definitely people that got blowback on stuff that is questionable. Where it's like, is this going too far?
yeah. Well,
Sometimes,
well,
yes.
as always with a lot of the Me Too movement, unfortunately, the Me Too movement is not only super important, it's a really good thing. But off of that comes a bit of what you're saying is that is the negative stereotypical behavior of the social justice warrior,
Yeah.
where I don't think inherently trying to have social justice is a bad thing. Like that's where I push
No,
back
it's a
when
good
people say
thing.
I hate when people are like social justice warriors and it's just a bad thing. I'm like, no, that's a good thing that people are trying to fix the world for to make it more
Yeah.
equitable and better for everyone else. Having said that, especially at the end of the decade, there was a ton of stuff where people would just latch on to anything that they
Yeah.
saw as negative and try to get someone quote unquote canceled. And you're like, that's not the same thing as like and it'd be the same attacks as the good stuff. Like when you get Harvey Weinstein out, you're like, good, fuck him. The
Exactly.
the king
That's
is dead. Push him off the goddamn cliff.
yes, that's the perfect example of 20 years of shitty behavior. Finally, a little bit of justice.
Well, also it's the beginnings of the Epstein
Also,
idea.
Kevin Spacey,
Yeah, Kevin Spacey's a huge one.
that's a big one.
Well, I just remember anybody who had a past that hid it really well, it wasn't hidden anymore. Jeffrey Rush took some bullets back then for some past behavior.
Mhm.
I mean, the only person I know of who had was not sexual assault. So I want to make that very clear before I say something that was, but had tendencies to make people a little uncomfortable was Bill Murray, and he's the only one that seemingly like got away unscathed. But he's talked about it at the very least, where he's like, "I thought this was funny. I thought that was my intention, but and I thought I had a closer relationship with that person than I clearly did." And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that's not a taking responsibility for it, but at least it's an explanation for odd behavior better than I sexually assaulted someone and I'm not taking any responsibility for it.
Yeah. I
That's that weird fringe group because I remember like Louis C.K. was taking it down on that, and when you look at like what Louis did versus what other people did, it's still not right and it's still weird, but it's a very different level, you know.
yeah, I think it's just at least informing the everyday person about, you know, these people are people, they're very flawed or straight up monsters. Like,
Well, I mean, it's also the first inklings we realize of the Epstein files and how deep and dark that really is. And
yeah,
hell, your former favorite football team, their co-owner right now is in heat that people are
I
trying
saw
to,
that. Yeah.
they're trying to, and and that's another thing that movie podcast, he's a movie producer. He's been on a huge amount of movies. And that's why he was able to afford um, the New York Giants co-ownership in Steve Tisch, and he's trying to say, "Oh, I barely had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein." It's like you clearly are fucking lying to us, and we know it. And I'm sorry to tell you, it ain't going away. This is the one issue people have finally actually like. No, you can't just
Yeah.
pull the wool over our eyes, man. So it's a really good thing that it happens. Of course, there's always I was talking about this with someone else on a completely unrelated issue, but it's the same thing. there's always going to be blowback when you're actually trying to address an issue properly. There's always going to be negatives that spin off it. Every
Of course.
problem you solve, there's going to be another problem that is created. But is that problem created worth the solution? Because if it is, then you go towards the solution. If it's not worth the solution, then don't do it. It's that simple
Yeah.
in a lot of things, even when it's really crazy stuff. This was a
Yeah.
time where
That was just one trend where I'm like, we kind of have to at least
the
mention
thing
it.
is, I didn't even think about it because it wasn't strictly film related. It was just
See, I think it really started with film.
it does start with film, but it's not like directly film. Like when we're talking like mocap and shit like that, that's directly about film. So that's why
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
completely spaced on it. But I'm glad you brought it up because it's really important. And it's just, I mean, shit. There's whole categories of the internet dedicated to that where you're like, God damn, in
Yeah.
weird ways and things that people like and things that don't like. It's so weird, but it's like we should not have people being subjected to this shit at all,
Yeah. I
man.
mean, it's just one big thing that you have to mention. In terms of Oscars, I have a very easy way of breaking it down,
Go for it.
which is to me, you get a shift from very traditional to more unique, more stylized stuff. Because in terms of like when I think of the Oscars as a whole, the 1980s and the 2000s is where you get Oscar bait like crazy, and it's very effective.
Yeah.
And then more in the 90s and 2010s, that's where I see like, hey, a positive shift is happening where we're allowing more stuff, more unique stuff to be not just nominated, but also winning stuff.
It can, yeah.
Yeah, like Shape of Water wins Best Picture. That would have never happened in the 2000s,
No.
ever. And then like you have Arrival, stuff like that, where it's like this is definitely a genre rather than
The Martian is another one
yes,
that's nominated.
yeah,
Get Out is nominated. A
yeah.
lot of
Like
really good stuff
you do
is
have
in there.
still traditional stuff like Lady Bird and Green Book.
I mean, fucking Black Panther gets nominated. It
Yeah,
shouldn't have,
like
but it got nominated.
to me, 2010s was a positive shift.
Well, also, I even look at stuff that would have been considered Oscar ish, but is so wildly different than what it was, like Birdman. Birdman is a weird fucking movie, and
Yeah,
that's not something the Oscars would have really gone for back in the day.
yeah,
And Birdman wins, So there's oddly like there's little ones here and there that are clearly classical Oscar ones. Like 12 Years a Slave, I would say Spotlight is also a traditional Oscar style film.
100%.
But then yeah, your Shape of Water and all these other
Because
Parasite, all these weird movies out of nowhere that you're like, "Oh,
yeah, because like
okay."
Spotlight, if that's nominated literally any year in the past 100 years, it probably will win Best Picture.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those movies where they're at least finding a good medium.
Also, again, kind of attached to the Me Too movement, more of the reveal of the Catholic Church and how abusive that was definitely
Yes,
part of that era
yes,
too. Spotlight was it. People don't realize how important Spotlight was because it kept that fire going when that story broke. They were
yeah.
like, no, no, no,
I
we're going to keep talking about this.
the movie's pretty forgotten, but I love it.
I've never actually watched it, which is insane because it's my
Oh,
boy
it's
Michael
great.
Keaton. It's just one
Yeah,
of those
Michael
like
Keaton's great in it.
it came and went for me where I was like, I got to
And
watch
it's got
that, and I never done it.
Mark Ruffalo, Rachel McAdams, great
Oh,
cast.
I know the whole cast is people I like. That's the crazy
Yeah.
part. So that's why I'm like, oh, I got to watch that.
Um, what do you got for your standout movies, your favorites?
So I've got defining movies, and I know we're gonna do some disappointing movies and favorites. So what order do we want to go? I think we define at the end, right?
Yeah, that's probably most
All right. So
fair.
we'll go positive. We'll do a positive sandwich. Um, classic managing term. Do a positive sandwich when you do this. So favorites of the decade for me, and I'm not going to talk about the bigger stuff right away, just because they're going to be part of the defining movies a lot of the time. Moneyball is an absolute favorite of mine that I adore from this decade. And my favorite Wes Anderson movie of all time comes from this decade in Moonrise Kingdom. Grand Budapest Hotel is also a huge favorite of mine.
My Yeah, I have it down by genre, and my comedy was Grand Budapest.
But I think Wes Anderson is incredible throughout this entire decade. I don't think he does a bad job in anything during this decade. And I don't think he ever does a bad job in general, but I think everything he does hits in a real different
Yeah,
kind of
I'd
way.
agree.
Um, Another favorite of mine, it's a guilty pleasure of mine, is Robin Hood. I shouldn't say guilty pleasure, I just enjoy it. But it's the like it's my favorite Ridley Scott movie, which is insane for most people to hear, but
Yeah,
I'm not a huge Ridley Scott fan, but I really
me
enjoy
either.
I enjoy the Robin Hood story so much, and it's a different version of the epic. So I like that.
Also, weird fact about me, Moneyball was the first Blu-ray I ever owned,
Are you fucking serious?
and I remember I bought it blindly, I'd never seen it. Like, for all the movies on Blu-ray that I have now, it's like, for Moneyball to be the first one is so weird.
Very strange. I will say, not my for. I don't. I own that digitally. I don't own that in any other way. Inception, obviously.
That
We
was
should
another one.
we
I had
should
that down as my action.
we should probably add this to our list of when we do defining film. We should kind of say who the actors or the directors are of the time. Without question, the director of the 2010s is
Yes,
Christopher Nolan. And
continuing into the 2020s.
I mean, he's. I know it sucks because no one is Spielberg, but if you're gonna say someone is the Spielberg of this kind of era, it's Christopher Nolan.
Yes.
And then finally, the little movie that could for me. It's not everyone's favorite, but it's my second favorite movie of all time. Tucker and Dale versus Evil, baby. It is in the It's in 2010. It is such a good movie, and I fucking love it. So those are my
Yeah,
favorites.
the ones I had down, I had Inception down as my action
Okay.
favorite, Grand Budapest, and then I wrote down I had to fit Coco in there somewhere, so I put that down as animation.
Well, direct quote: "If you don't cry at Coco, you're not a human being." That was your direct quote
I
on that
mean,
one.
it's fantastic. And then more of like a cult hit, The Nice Guys, which is a movie that's completely forgotten,
It is,
but
yeah.
it is so good. I just rewatched it. It is
Is
amazing.
that the one with Gosling and Crow?
Yes, and they are fucking hilarious together.
Okay.
Like, they have great chemistry.
I've never seen it, but it's one of
Oh,
those. It's
it's
on the eternal list of I'll get to it.
yeah. It is Ryan Gosling, that's where I'm like, "Holy shit, this guy's actually, like, hilarious."
Oh yeah.
Like, he can be very funny. And then, my drama was just Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Sicario are the standouts for me.
Well, Sicario is. I think Sicario is the one you'll go to bat for the most. Ironically.
That's another one where, like, if we're talking movie recommendations, that's probably a movie that most people haven't seen.
Well, maybe that's going to be one of your movie recs in our new weekly
Yeah.
segment.
And then I had a hard time with disappointment.
Oh, I got plenty. So don't you worry.
I I think my biggest one was probably The Last Jedi, because I only say that because now I don't care anyway about it, but, like, back then I was like, "Oh, Star Wars could actually return and be something cool."
Yeah.
And to me, The Last Jedi is the point where I just clocked completely out.
So I named 2 and Last Jedi as part of a two-parter for them, or I named 3, but it's really 2 Star Wars films and another one that I will talk about. I think Last Jedi is more disappointing than Rise of Skywalker
I'd agree.
because of the fact that Force Awakens is a solid double. It's a straightforward, let's just make something that's going to make people happy.
Yeah,
Everything about Force Awakens, when you're not talking about the diversity of the 3 leads, everything about that is as safe can be,
yeah,
except the choice of not putting Luke Skywalker in it long term, which
true.
is a huge problem. Because I'm had JJ just put him in a different context, we wouldn't have got Last Jedi the way we got Last Jedi, which probably would have helped a lot. But you finally had Star Wars had positive momentum back on a
Mhm.
grand scale because Clone Wars had already happened. You had gotten the Star Wars fans back, like the sweaty Star Wars fans back, but you didn't get the general public back yet.
Yeah,
And they clearly wanted it because it broke every fucking record ever when it was. I mean, I still remember ESPN was on its ass, and it sucked at Monday Night Football at this time. And the biggest draw of the entire of Monday Night Football was the fact that the new trailer for Star Wars is going to play during Monday Night Football, and it's like by far at the time the highest rated Monday Night Football game because everyone's like, "Holy shit, Star Wars is going to play!"
Mhm.
Like, and then they announced the tickets, and I bought them the second they were available because I was like, it was 3 months ahead of time. Like, that night, just know we're going to Star Wars. I don't care. Tell me who's coming, and I will buy the tickets right now. But Last Jedi is such a disappointing movie that I don't even know if you can call Rise of Skywalker that disappointing because you already were gutted. But Rise of
Mhm.
Skywalker brings back so many cool things that you loved, and it's used so poorly that I'm like, it's got an argument. Like you get Palpatine come back out of nowhere, Lando comes back out of nowhere.
It's 10 times more of a mess than Last Jedi is,
Right.
but for some reason, I still like it more.
I like it more because it's just schlock I'll watch occasionally, just be like, hey, it's Star Wars, whatever. Like it's just bullshit Star Wars that sometimes I'm in the mood for. Where Last Jedi, I am never in the mood to watch Last Jedi. I would not be shocked unless I'm sitting down with someone else doing like a Star Wars marathon if the only time I watch Last Jedi for the rest of my life is when you and I cover it for the big box office series. I will not be shocked whatsoever.
I 100% agree. I probably will never watch it again after that.
It's just a bad movie. And then the true most disappointing movie of the decade for me, it's Batman versus Superman. Um,
Yeah, that's another good one.
it's just
I think I don't care
it's
about that just because Man of Steel.
you don't care about it nearly as much, but as you know, the closest thing I have to a deity is Batman.
Mhm.
And all I've ever wanted to see on screen is the Justice League together. I've only ever wanted to see the DC universe really be shown the way it should be shown in a very grand way that is appealing to mass audiences and really shows the beauty of all these characters that have been with us for almost a century now. I mean,
Yeah.
Batman truly the more I go into analysis of Batman, the more I realize how much of that character and the stories of that character inform my true worldview.
Hmm,
I'm as anti-gun as I am because of Batman. It's also a lot of
yeah,
logic in there, but that's where the first ideas of that come from.
mhm.
A lot of my ideas on social justice and everything come from the ideas of Batman, which is insane because that doesn't inherently compute, right? And then to finally have the chance for everyone to play together and just be this jumbled fucking mess that, and I'm not hiding from, I gave it a positive review the first time I watched it. I remember coming out and like, oh, it's so good. But I was looking at the sizzle and I wasn't looking at the steak. Because I remember losing my shit when they, at the end battle with Doomsday, he's hanging off that railing and they have the lightning bolt in the background and they make the cover from the Dark Knight Returns. I'm like, fucking Dark Knight Returns. Oh my God. And it was like, I was just blinded by how cool some of the shit was that I was like, oh wait, Batman's straight up fucking muck ducking some people in this bitch. I don't know if I can do that. Like,
And Heavy Superman, talking about sizzle. You know the meme of like when the fajitas come out sizzling?
yeah,
And it's like the dance.
yeah,
Batman versus Superman is like you're sitting at a table, you hear the sizzle coming
uh,
after you order fajitas,
yeah.
they lift off the plate, and then it's just like a speaker playing a sizzling recording. It's like the perfect example where it's just like absolutely nothing.
Thank you for that because you just gave me the clip that I'm going to be putting on the internet for this one. That's perfect. Thank you.
That's like a perfect metaphor, I think, for it.
I mean, it's true. I just remember so many people. I don't remember even arguing. I think it's going to do better than Star Wars because people had seen
Mhm.
Star Wars and been disappointed, but because they were coming out only 3 months apart. And I remember arguing this with my now friend, my best friend Angelo, and I was like, he's like, really? I mean, Star Wars is so big. I was like, no, but the thing is, they've already seen Star Wars twice, and they've been disappointed and gutted once. and that was the last experience they had. So I don't know if it's going to happen. And Batman versus Superman still made a ton of money, but I think it's very abundantly clear that if that movie was even middle of the road mediocre, it easily would have cracked $1 billion because it went into the high eights and it
Yeah,
was a terrible movie.
yeah, I do. I agree. The other one that I just thought of was Crimes of Grindelwald. I don't hate that movie as much as most people do. I just I think it's disappointing because it really led to it was inevitable that they're not gonna make it to the 5 that was planned. So,
Well,
yeah.
also, I think it's tough because they always said we're going to do more Harry Potter, but we're not going to do more Harry Potter. And then it's so abundantly clear of how do we make this more Harry Potter while they're also trying to tell you it's not all about Harry Potter. And you're like, how does this magical zookeeper play a role
Well, yeah.
in a wizarding war
Well, he's
against?
definitely wedged into the Dumbledore story. That's really what they want to be telling, so
Yeah, and it's just, and also, like, I get it. Dumbledore is older than a normal person should be when you first see Dumbledore in Harry Potter, but like the timeline is weird and it just doesn't,
oh, yeah. It's flawed,
it
but
doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But Crimes of Grindelwald, yeah, like again, I think I view Force Awakens and the first Fantastic Beast movie in a really similar light. Let's just let's just get up there,
I'd agree.
do our job, make a movie that's going to be fine for people and they'll hopefully enjoy it and it's part of an IP they love. They'll love it. Let's just do that. And then Crimes of Grindelwald, they're like, we're going to go crazy and we're going to have wizarding Nazis back and shit. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
I don't know about this, guys.
I guess a good ending question would be, do you think the 2010s were better than what you think the 2020s are going to be?
So let's think about that when we talk about the defining films and then kind of do that.
I think we already mentioned a lot of them, so
Well, I know, but I'm just going to read them out real quick. And defining is both good and bad. So
exactly, yeah.
on the bad end, I would say the defining films here, obviously Last Jedi has to be in there. And I'd say Batman versus Superman is kind of in there cuz it's this, they're the two big, man, what could have beens. And there to go. But then on the positive note, defining films of this era, Get Out is probably the most fondly remembered movie of that entire decade. Or if it's not number one, it's definitely in the top five. Avengers Endgame has to be a part of the defining era of that one.
Mhm.
I would argue Black Panther is in there because of how much of a different audience finally is brought to light through Black Panther in a major way. Wolf of Wall Street has to be known as a defining movie of that era. So many people still love Wolf of Wall Street, and I don't get why.
Oh, it's great.
No, I love Wolf of Wall Street, but they love it in a manner that I'm like, I never viewed this movie as like a
I
defining
think
of
there's a
an
lot
era.
of I think there's a lot of flawed thinking where a lot of bros like that
I was gonna
movie
say
for the wrong
it's
reasons.
a bro movie. That's why. Um,
'Cause, like,
Parasite,
I look at that movie and I'm like, "Yeah, this guy's a fucking like, a clown."
yeah, he's a
But
total clown.
I think a lot of bros are like, "Oh, this fuck movie."
Easy to say. I think Wolf of Wall Street. If you polled the general audience of listeners of the Joe Rogan Experience, they'd probably say Wolf of Wall Street is their favorite movie. Um,
That or Pulp Fiction.
yeah. I'd say Parasite is definitely a defining film of that era. Really brings foreign film up to
Another
where
Oscar.
to genre to where it's a genre of film that isn't inherently just discarded by Western audiences. The Social Network obviously is kept up really popularly of that time. And then Force Awakens I would put in there, as I would also put in Mad Max Fury Road. They've all those movies have started to stand the test of time where if you put them on a commercial for movies that are streaming for you, they still get attention in a really positive way for
That's
people.
fair.
So that's where I would say those are like the 10 I kind of picked out. If you had to name what is the best movie of the 2010s, what would you say it is?
For me,
Or in general, I don't, whatever.
I would say in general, I would probably say Social Network is the best movie of the 2010s.
I'm gonna go Get Out. I just think Get Out's perfect. or I shouldn't say perfect, but Get Out is so goddamn good and is just redefining in a lot of ways for
Yeah.
what can
Both of
be.
those are on my top 100. So yeah, they're a lot of great stuff. 2010s,
So going back to your question, are we going to remember the tens better than the 20s? Was that the question essentially?
pretty much.
I think that's complex because this is the. I'm going to give you a straight answer. I'm just kind of working it out. So much of my childhood is finally brought to the silver screen in a way that I really, really always wanted, that it's going to be tough because this is also the era in which I feel I become a film student in a way, where I stop watching just I at the same time as I'm watching all the stuff I've always dreamt about being on screen coming to screen, I also start watching film in a different way, where I start following Oscar campaigns and really looking at films for high quality and different ideas than just what I normally would go to the theater to watch. Um, Having said that, though, I think I'm going to remember the 2020s better than the 2010s.
Really, I would go the opposite.
I think
I think 30 years down the line, I think there will be more classics in the 2010s than there will be 2020s.
I could easily see that being true, but I think the reason I would say I will look more fondly on the 2020s is, oddly enough, I think more of the 2020s movies that I love stand out more. Part of that is just the landscape, but also it's part of the selection process kind of thing. So I'm saying it's a flawed idol of perspective. Very much like in sports, when the new guy comes along and he does something that's never been done, immediately he's the greatest player that ever played. Or, a new movie comes out, oh, it's the greatest of this genre. And you're like, no, you never thought about X, Y, and Z when you made that statement. But then I also look at the flip side where I hate people who just say the first is always the best, because I look at a lot of movies from this era the same way I look at, you know, players that I think are amazing. I'm like, say what you will, I think Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, because he can do things no one else has done, and he's also done it in a successful manner. And I look at it where, you know, Top Gun Maverick stands up against anything at the same
Yeah.
time. Like, just because it's not the first one doesn't mean it doesn't stand up. Or I think Barbie stands up on its own really, really well. Everything Everywhere All at Once stands up really, really well. I think
I just don't
Sinners is
think
incredible.
those I don't think those are gonna be considered classics 30 years down the
I
line.
think the sad question we then have to ask for that is, will there still be classics? And obviously there will be, in the sense of a film fan will say, "Oh, these are the classics of that era."
Eh,
But
it
will
definitely lasts.
will we have the idea of what a classic is anymore in
It's
30
harder
years?
it's harder because there's no such thing as a zeitgeist anymore,
Right. I mean, like,
really.
that's why I think the
So,
movies that I kind of pointed out, they captured the zeitgeist in a manner that doesn't really exist anymore,
yeah,
so
we'll
that
see.
they stand out. But that's what I'd say for the tens. It's kind of a downer note to leave it, because I think the tens actually is an underrated decade because it's trying
Well,
so many.
positive on my end, negative on yours.
Well, I mean, I'm still very positive on the tens, but I also look back and see I had a personal investment in a lot of the
Sure.
downfalls, where some of the most infamous downfalls of the film industry in the 2010s were directly tied to some of my favorite shit that's ever existed.
That's fair.
So it's hard because I'm like, where now I've either been callous to some of the failures, or I can point out that's going to be bad from the moment. Don't be disappointed by it. And there's also now a maturity of going, oh, I think that could be good, but we'll see, versus, oh my God, it's going to be great. And then just, bleh. But we'll see. And I'm excited to keep this into the 2000s, because I think the 2000s is going to be a really weird one for us, because that's where we first start dabbling in film.
For sure.
And it's going to be an interesting. I mean, that's where I become an adult theoretically, is at the end of of the odds. So it's going to be an interesting one for us nonetheless. But this has been our decade project here. But I'm going to give one trivia question to Dylan. So I'm always trying to
Okay.
give us a little game at the end. This is a quick one. Domestic box office of the 2010s. Can you give me the top 5 movies at the domestic box office of the 2010s?
Are we including Avatar?
Avatar is not in the top 5.
Oh, wow, okay. Force Awakens.
Force Awakens is your number 1. Correct.
Ooh, what else would be in there?
I think Avatar's not in there because of how much money the international box office gave it, not the
Yeah.
American
I would
box
have
office.
I would have assumed, though, it would have been in the 700s for domestic.
All of these are in the 8s or above.
Oh, wow. All 5?
All 5.
Huh. I would have never guessed that
Or
many.
allegedly from my sources.
Yeah.
Allegedly from my sources.
Is The Last Jedi in there? I know it made a lot.
The Last Jedi is not in there.
Good. So I thank God. What about Harry Potter?
No Harry Potter. You're missing
Man.
one incredibly obvious one. Because it
Uh,
competes with Avatar for the number 1 movie of the year, or the movie of all time. Where they just
blanking.
constantly get into pissing contests about it.
Endgame?
Endgame. Endgame is number 2.
How about Jurassic World?
Jurassic World's number 5. You are missing 3 and 4.
Gross. Gross.
I
Um,
never understood why you hate that movie so much. It's not great, but it's not terrible. You
I
act as though that
know
movie is utter garbage, and I don't think it's utter garbage.
I know this was the number 1 movie of its year, Finding Dory.
Finding Dory is not in there, no.
Okay, good. It doesn't deserve it. It honestly doesn't deserve the number 1 spot of that year
Well,
either.
talk about a movie. Hey Dylan, really, pump up that movie because we're gonna cover it this year for the big box office series.
It's
Really
fine.
sell it, baby, sell it.
It's fine.
I will
Black
give it
Panther? That
Black
was the
Panther.
number 1 of its year.
Black Panther's number 3. You are missing number 4. You may want to look at the exact same year.
2018?
Yep. There's 2 2015s, which you already got in Force Awakens, Jurassic World.
I
There's 2 2018s, and you got the 2019 in Endgame.
I can't think of it.
Is there another
It's not
movie attached
I
to
would've
Endgame?
Oh, Infinity War?
Infinity War is number
Yeah.
4.
I suppose that makes sense. A lot of Marvel.
Yeah, it's 3 Marvel movies, 1 Star Wars movie, and 1 Jurassic movie.
Yeah. It's a shame.
I knew you were not going to be excited about that. See, we both got to be negative on this show. Isn't that fun? But that is going to do it here, folks, for our Decades episode. This has been live on Twitch, so Twitch audience, if you want to stay with us, please do. We're going to be doing a random movie generator. For those that are listening in recorded form, either look for the movie generator coming out or right beforehand. Haven't determined the schedule on this one yet, but double check that and see where we're at. Regardless of how you find us, please give us a like, comment, subscribe, or a follow wherever you can. If you want to follow us for live recordings, that's the Really Snappy Gaming channel. That's also a great YouTube channel for some great video game content. But if you want to stick solely to the movies, look at those Davies Boys and the Wisco Movie Watchers podcast. YouTube and Spotify is where you're going to find those. But thank you guys so much for watching, listening, lurking, wherever you may be. It is appreciated. And we can't wait to talk about the aughts. And we got a tournament coming out right as the aughts are starting as well. So it's going to be it's going to be fun since we ragged on franchises so much in this episode that we're going to be talking about so many of them in this tournament. You just seem so excited to talk about franchises. I'm really excited for you. All right. Well, either way, peace, love, and hugs to you all. Thank you once again. Goodbye.